Hello, and welcome to the July 2013 Instructor WebEx. We are going to be covering the fiscal year 13 review and also going over some details about co-instructing. My name is Mandy Estel, and I am a training specialist. I will just to go over some housekeeping for those of you that are listening to this recording. Most of this will not apply to you, but the directions for attendance will be given at the end of this call. So the very last screen will have information about how you can get attendance for listening to this WebEx. The agenda that we're going to cover today is the fiscal year in review, which is July 2012 to June 2013. We'll be looking at some of the accomplishments that we've been able to do both locally in our division and then also nationally. And then we're also going to be looking at the topics that we covered in the WebEx just as a review. The second thing we're going to be discussing are instructors and co-instructors. It's going to be a little bit more in-depth than the June WebEx was. Specifically, we're going to be talking about responsibilities before, during, and after class, and then we're going to talk a little bit about behavior styles and how those affect what goes on in the classroom. So you can see on the screen here the fiscal year 2013 in review. We have some different accomplishments. You can see that the First Aid app was released last July. We did hit over 1 million downloads. This is the app that is talked about at the end of the course presentation whenever you're teaching your classes. So if you've not had an opportunity to go and download it and look at it, I would suggest that you do that. It is free. And if you do not have a phone that will accept apps like that, perhaps next time you're co-teaching with somebody, you could ask if they have it and look at it so that you can be knowledgeable whenever you're talking about it to the students in your class. In August, we just plugged right along, making sure that we had provided great customer service to our clients and to the students in our classes. In September, National Release Blended Learning, our new blended learning program. Even though it wasn't implemented in most territories for a few months, it did come out then. It has been a huge success, and it continues to grow with people being more interested in it. In October, we launched our quality assurance processes. That's the documents that and processes that we have in place to audit instructors, and then also if we're dealing with instructors that need some remediation, we have processes in place to deal with that as well. In November, the end of October, beginning of November, we did consolidate staff in most territories to realign with a cost-effective model. And that led in December to having to develop new processes in which a lot more responsibility was given to individual instructors to help in the conduction of classes. In January 13, we started our WebEx trainings. In February, we started IT academies. We started scheduling them consistently throughout the division. In March, Louisiana and Mississippi joined Division 5. In April, we launched an online document library, also known as the PTOC folder. All paid instructors and most volunteer instructors at this point do have access to that folder. It contains documents that are specific to your territory and then also documents that are just in general specific to Division 5 as far as policies and procedures. In May, we launched a National Volunteer Instructor Initiative to increase the number of volunteer instructors in our community classes. And the National Red Cross also opened up the 401k program for contributions for paid instructors. And then lastly, in June, just last month, we launched a centralized website for instructors that has all of the links to all of the websites that instructors use, including a link to the PTOC folder. We also released our new paid instructor handbook. And then if you look over on the right, you can see WebEx topics of what we covered. As I said, we didn't launch WebEx trainings until January, but in November and December we were doing instructor in-services throughout the division. Some territories, I know it went into the went into the spring there, and I know that Louisiana and Mississippi just finished out their first round of instructor in services. So generally, though, we conducted those last winter. And then in January, we started with the topics you see listed there. We discussed technology and equipment. We discussed how to become an instructor trainer and what our quality assurance program consisted of. In March, we talked about challenges and best practices that our instructors face in the classroom. In April, we talked about the different awards that are available to instructors and to students who perform life-saving skills. And then we also took a look at the PTOC folder, how to access it and what information that you could gather from it. In May, we discussed stacked classes and end-of-course scenarios and how instructors can handle those. And then in June, we discussed communications, how to be a good communicator, how to communicate well with your coworkers and with your managers. As a reminder, all past sessions are posted in the PTOC folder. So if you want to go back and review some of the information that we covered, or perhaps you're a new instructor that came on sometime in the spring and you're interested in going back, those web sessions are posted in the PTOC folder. You can also access them on this YouTube channel where this recording is going to be posted. All right, moving on to our next topic, we have primary instructors and co-instructors. So as I mentioned, we did cover this some in the June training, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into it today. As you know, or if you have not been scheduled to teach with somebody yet, we do frequently schedule multiple instructors in classes, especially in our more metropolitan areas. So there's a good chance that you may be paired up with one of your coworkers or with a volunteer instructor to teach a class. It is PHSS. We do have a policy on it that on primary and co-instructors. It is listed in our paid instructor handbook, but the policies do apply to both paid and volunteer instructors. Primary instructors and co-instructors are specifically assigned their roles by the training scheduler. So if you're not sure who is the primary or lead instructor, as it sometimes is posted in When to Work, you can go ahead and contact the scheduler and ask them if you are the primary instructor or the co-instructor. That way you'll know what role that you and what tasks that you need to complete before your class. Because 2 or more instructors in a class means that there's more details and more coordination involved, it does take some extra steps. And taking time to communicate with your co-instructors will show a unified and professional team to our clients. It's important to have good communication, just like we discussed in June. Unless specifically instructed otherwise, instructors are expected to share an equitable portion of the lecture, discussion, and skills section of the course. Both instructors should be present in the class throughout the duration. Primary instructor's responsibility before a class. For full-service classes, the primary instructor needs to contact the client 3 to 4 business days before using the full-service script. Each territory has a specific script that you should be using to go through and confirm the details of the class. And then after you call, make sure that you follow your territory's policy on reporting that contact to your manager. The primary instructor also needs to contact the co-instructor or co-instructors for the class to coordinate the details. That's the same for a community class. If 2 of you are conducting a community class, you should be touching base with each other just to make sure that you talk through the details of the class. Make sure that you receive the paperwork on or before the day of class. And then if you're teaching at a location for a community class that has access codes, either a security door, either the code to the door or the alarm, make sure that you have those codes and that they're current. If you're a co-instructor, your responsibility before a class is to make sure that you've communicated with the primary instructor. So if it's a day or 2 before you're scheduled to teach with a primary instructor and you haven't heard from them, please reach out and contact them just to make sure that you're both on the same page about the details. And then also, in conjunction with that, making sure that you are familiar with the details of the class and what's going on. In case something were to happen to that primary instructor at last minute, you need to make sure that you're familiar with what's going to happen in the class. So Make sure that you discuss specific things like the parking and building entrance and visitor registration. For community class, same thing. Make sure that you've communicated with the primary instructor before the class. If it's someone that you teach with a lot, it may be something as simple as just sending them a text message to make sure you're on the same page about stuff. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out. It can be just something real simple so you both know what's going on. And then you also need to make sure in a community class that you can access the community facility. Here's some things to consider in your discussion between you and the other person that you're conducting the class with. Consider transportation. If it's someplace that's outside of your regular area, could you carpool together to save on costs? Material and equipment. Who will bring the laptops and projector? Will someone bring extra kits? Think about how you're going to divide up the teaching. Who will teach each section? It can be divided up by chapters or topics, possibly before and after lunch. Or if you're teaching 2 days in a row, it could be one instructor will do all of the lecture and guiding of the activities, and the co-instructor just helps check off skills, and then the following day you may swap roles. And then also having a conversation about using the DVD or the course presentation. Remember that if you're using the DVD, you need to have the activity skill cards and other paperwork that goes along with using the DVD. So make sure that you consider that as well and who is going to be responsible to bring that material. During a class, the primary instructor's responsibility is making sure that they arrive both to the full service and community classes at least 1/2 hour before the start of class for setup. Make sure that you are conducting the class to Red Cross standards. And the primary instructor needs to make the final decision if the student is not proficient in skills or fails the class. So your co-instructor does need to have some say in that, but the final decision does rest with the primary instructor. The primary instructor for a community class also can make the decision if a late student can enter and participate in the class. So in the paid instructor's handbook, the directions and guidance are that if a student is more than 15 minutes late, they are not to be admitted to the class, with the exception that the student can get caught up without causing any problems for other participants in the class. So the primary instructor would be the one who would make the ultimate decision if the student should stay in the class or not. The co-instructor's responsibilities during the class are the same as the primary instructors, to make sure that they arrive a 1/2 hour at least before the start of the class, and to participate in conducting the class as discussed with the lead instructor. After a class, the primary instructor's responsibility is to obviously clean up the classroom, ensure that it is put back in order. The primary instructor should submit the class paperwork, send a follow-up thank you email to the client, which is a best practice. We talked about last month that best practice, making sure that you send it from your Red Cross email address. And then report any potential class problems to the training specialist. The co-instructor after class is to participate and clean up after the class, and to help the primary instructor make sure that the paperwork and all specific details around the class are delivered appropriately, so that it might be something that the lead instructor can delegate or assign or task the co-instructor to help with submitting the course paperwork. That's perfectly fine as well. Dealing with difficult situations while co-teaching. I want to point out that this is that when I use the term co-instructor here, it means the other classroom instructor. So it's not necessarily you're the primary instructor and you're having difficult situations with the co-instructor. It could be that that you're the co-instructor and you're having issues with the primary instructor. So the first situation we have listed is you're running late to class. If you are running late to class, you definitely make sure that you call or text your co-instructor and that the two of you discuss how to handle the situation based on how tardy you or if it's the other instructor that calls you, how late that you'll be. This may require adjusting the class plans for who is responsible for each lesson. So if something's going on where maybe there was an accident and you are running late but your co-instructor is going to be on time, it may be something where you have the discussion, perhaps you were planning to start the class and teach the first lesson and now your co-instructor will need to do it so that the class gets started. Let's say your co-instructor forgot their instructor's manual. You could allow the other instructor to use your manual during the sections that you're not teaching. If you both happen to have laptops, of course the instructor's manual in digital version is available. It could be something too where you end up teaching the majority of the lecture with your instructor's manual and your co-instructor ends up just helping you check off skills. Your co-instructor gives incorrect information or misinterprets something in the instructor's manual. A possible solution is to wait for a break or a video and quietly bring the point to your co-instructor's attention. Allow your co-instructor to correct the error in front of the class, but do not argue with the other instructor in front of the students. If needed, you can contact your training specialist for clarification. The key point here is to not have an argument in front of the other students about the disagreement that you're having. You need to take that off to the side and professionally discuss it with each other. Let's say you're in a situation where you're missing equipment. The two of you can discuss what material is missing between you and your coworker. If the equipment isn't something that students can share, decide which of you will contact the logistics or the training specialist about getting the equipment or another possible solution. So one of you could continue to teach the class while the other one steps out and makes a phone call. Your co-instructor is being unfriendly, unprofessional, or saying inappropriate comments and jokes. During a break in the class, quietly express your concern to your co-instructor. If the co-instructor continues, discuss the situation with your training specialist after the class. So here again, we don't want to have any type of disagreement in front of the class. If it's something that is just that you feel very uncomfortable about, I would say that you could excuse yourself during a break and go and call your manager during that time to let them know that you have a concern about what's going on in the classroom. And then finally, if the co-instructor is not following proper decontamination procedures, a possible solution would be to ask why the co-instructor is not following the guidelines. If the equipment is issued to you, it's appropriate to say, please use these Clorox wipes on these mannequins, or would you like to use some of my Clorox wipes? I find they're an easy way to clean mannequins and meet the standards for proper decontamination. It could be that your co-instructor is not aware of how to properly decontaminate, or they may not have the correct, or they may not have ever been explained how to properly do it. So it's something that can be easily corrected. If you have any questions, though, you can always redirect them back to your training specialist. All right, time for a knowledge check. So please take note of this. Who should initiate contact with the full service client? Should it be the primary instructor or the co-instructor? And if you thought to yourself, the primary instructor, you were correct. Let's talk a little bit now about behavioral styles. Every person is unique in how he or she interacts with the world around them. There are 4 basic personality or behavioral styles. Understanding your personality tendencies and those of your work colleagues can help in communication before, during, and after a class. I have here the definition of the four different types of behavioral styles. These definitions are developed by Integrity Solutions, is a company that works with the Red Cross for staff development. So all of your managers, including the training specialists, have gone through training on these different personality behaviors and how to work with them to be able to manage well. So the 4 different styles are talkers, doers, supporters, and controllers. A talker is someone who is outgoing and enthusiastic. They aren't as interested in details, and they value personal relationships. Their decisions are often based on emotions as well as facts. A doer is direct, forceful, and result-oriented. They require concise, focused information. They make quick decisions and have clear objectives to achieve. Supporters are careful and need time to process information. They like to establish trusting relationships and are reluctant to change the way they have always done things. Controllers are detail-oriented, deliberate, and well-organized. They rely on facts, evidence, and data. They weigh all alternatives before making a decision or commitment. So how does knowing and understanding behavioral styles affect you and the people that you work with? This is a personal experience. I am a supporter, and I work very closely with a doer on our team. So as a supporter, you need to keep in mind that your co-instructor will probably be in let's get it done mode. You'll be checking the participant progress log because you're process-oriented. You want to make sure that the process has worked correctly and that you're doing it correctly. And your co-instructor will probably be checking his watch because he's in go mode. Working together, you'll have a great team who will keep the class moving, but also ensure that everything was done correctly. Let's say that as an instructor, your behavioral style is that you're a talker, which means that you're people-oriented. You can strike up a conversation with anybody at any time, and you genuinely enjoy listening to people's stories. Let's say that you're teaching a class with a controller who's very detail-oriented. You need to keep in mind that while you would like to talk and share stories with students after class, your co-instructor will have everything cleaned up, put back in place, and most likely in alphabetical order. Working together, you'll have a great team who will make clients and students feel welcome while demonstrating a professional and well-ordered classroom. So it can be a great balance between making sure that students feel welcome and that also that the specific details of their questions are answered and that everything is needed in order for the next time that you're scheduled to teach. Most likely, you have a mixture of behavioral styles, but you have one that's more strong or more dominant than any of the other 3 styles. Based on that combination, that usually determines how you will act in different situations. Keep in mind when working with other co-instructors, clients, managers, and just coworkers in general, that your behavior style will influence how you perceive others' behaviors, communicate, and interact. Knowing this may help alleviate some of the tension that can arise when behavioral styles clash. You may need to process and review all of the details of a class before it happens so that you feel confident walking into the classroom. Expressing this to your co-instructor is a good way to communicate what you value, and it lets your co-instructor know how best to work for you. So that's kind of an example of needing to process and review all the details. Could be an example of a supporter or a controller. So if you know that that's a part of your personality or something that you very much value, it's good to be able to express that to the person you're teaching with and say, I really need to make sure that I am comfortable with the details of the class going in so that I can focus on students and conducting the class knowing that all of the details are handled. Whereas a talker or a doer may not be as concerned with the details of how things are going to happen. They're just going to go with it, and whatever happens, happens. So it's a good thing to have those discussions beforehand. Here's our second knowledge check question. Understanding the difference between behavioral styles can influence how you interact with others. True or false? If you thought to yourself true, then you've been listening and you answered correctly. All right, let's look forward for just a second. In fiscal year 14, we can look forward to our instructor in services in August, implementation of digital certificates that's going to be released in the next month or two. That's going to completely revolutionize how we do our paperwork, so it's very exciting. We're going to have standard processes for when to work. We're looking forward to continued growth in our community and full service classes. And most importantly, training our communities how to be safe and respond to emergencies. If you have questions or feedback about this call, please feel free to let your training specialist know. If you're watching this WebEx as a pre-recorded session and you need credit for attending the WebEx the month of July 2013, you need to email your training specialist the answers to the knowledge check questions. There are 2, but your attendance will be recorded. Thank you for listening to the call today.